Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It's Thursday, the 9th day of July 2020. We have a few things to talk about today. Of course, the big headline, if you will, is Invest Area 98L, well on its way probably to becoming our next named storm off the coast of the North Carolina Outer Banks. So let's start with that. This nice series of satellite pictures put together, we call that an animation. And this is courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. A couple things to point out. There's definitely more energy, more moisture out here in the eastern Atlantic. A little bit more convection overall. The table is slowly turning into the favor of a more conducive background state. So we've got a little bit more convection out there. We've got this tropical wave flaring up as it approaches and is about to cross into Central America. And then this large area of convection more concentrated right here off the Carolina coast in association with what will probably be our sixth named storm, and that will be Faye, F-A-Y, Faye. And then off to the left of the screen over here is Tropical Storm Christina in the eastern Pacific. We'll look at that in a moment as well. All right, so let's do a real quick close-up examination of what's happening with 98L. And the question was asked to me on Twitter, and this person actually tagged several people, why wasn't this a PTC, one of those potential tropical cyclones with advisories getting put out ahead of time? And you know what the short answer from me is? I don't know. I don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe it was not necessarily considered hazardous enough that I don't know. I mean, honestly, we've been tracking it. It came off of land instead of from water, so maybe that was different. I mean, I know it's over water now, but I think the biggest takeaway here is it's not threatening to become a strong system, and certainly not a hurricane. And so to heighten that level of, oh, there's a potential tropical cyclone, and I'm just trying to give it some personality. That's kind of what that's for. It's more of a, alert, alert, alert. There's a potential tropical cyclone. That's what that product does, and it allows them to put watches and warnings, especially when a system looks like in the guidance and by just looking out at it, open the window and see what's happening, looks like it's going to have some high impacts. This is not that. And so I think it makes sense for this to just remain in the tropical weather outlook. It's being talked about on media, social media, and in different National Weather Service products. And I think that justifies enough coverage of it, because it's not going to be a high impact event. That is not to say there will be no impacts. I mean, you can see these storms right here that are firing up in this band. There's lots of lightning in here. Any shipping interest, fishermen, you name it, that are coming out of the Oregon Inlet up here, or out of Hatteras Inlet, and then eventually up the Capes here, the Delmarva Peninsula and points north. If you're in a small craft, you got to take this seriously. But in terms of a major impact event, no, it's not going to be. You're going to have the onshore flow with it. We're already seeing that here in parts of the Outer Banks and the Mid-Atlantic. That will continue. This will have some periods of heavy rain, a few thunderstorms. Flash flooding could be an issue. Yes, there are going to be impacts, but it's not going to be a really big problem. Certainly not a big wind producer. Just trying to put this into perspective. Take it seriously, but don't get too concerned about it. Maybe stay off the beach. And, if you want to be on the beach and just get wet, that's fine. But catch up on something on Netflix or whatever, That's the kind of event this looks like it'll be. So the Vorticity Signature, I like looking at this product, as you know well by now. And you can see it's more oval-shaped. It's there, but kind of oval-shaped. The energy is kind of spread out. That is what Vorticity looks like that's really getting after it. It's really getting its act together. And that's Christina there in the eastern Pacific. Nice little chunk of Vorticity coming off. Crossing the Cabo Verde Islands. There's some energy out here in the deep tropics, and some energy, as we showed in the cloud animation. This is what it looks like if you examine it from the vorticity point of view, how much energy is there or spin in the atmosphere. And that's the system that's approaching Central America right there. So you see how that works? Pretty neat. Just real quick, I forgot to pull up the Hurricane Center site. So let's do that now, shall we? 90% chance with our system off the Carolina coast. We'll examine this more in a moment in terms of the forecast. Here's Christina, though. Winds are now 65 miles per hour. Not forecast to become a hurricane, except for a day or so. Put it that way. It looked like it was going to strengthen earlier. It hasn't. But this should stay off the coast of Mexico. That's the bottom line. You don't have to worry about this being a big problem at all. Maybe sending some swells out towards the Mexican coastline up here, Cabo San Lucas first, and you might be able to catch some waves. That would be nice. So here's an interesting tweet from Tyler. We follow Tyler. Where is he now? I think he graduated, so he's a grad student. That's right, he went to OU, now he's up at Virginia Tech. Got a Bachelor of Science in Meteorology. That is something else, I got to tell you. Specialized in tropical meteorology. Now he's a grad student at Virginia Tech, so that's why we trust what Tyler says. So he's saying here, and I like the annotation, more and more people getting good at this and making nice little GIF animations, and it makes my job easy because then I can show you and explain things. So, but I want to make sure we give credit to who generated it, and it's important. These up-and-coming people, I like them. They're good folks. So that's why we show what they do. So based on visible satellite imagery, Tyler says, a new low-level center appears to be forming an association with the deep convection east of Cape Hatteras. If current trends continue, this will result in the formation of a tropical cyclone later today. And that makes sense, and you can see that happening right in here. This is the old circulation here, just east of my neck of the woods here in southeast North Carolina, the Wilmington area. But what happened is some mid-level energy got out here, sitting over the Gulf Stream. This is starting to take over. This is where the most convergence is. The most vorticity is trying to concentrate there. All sorts of heat is going on with what we call the condensation is, of course, a warming process. And the convection is that warming process. And that helps to lower the air pressure, and the feedback mechanism can begin. And he goes on to say this is just a nice thread here. While some further deepening of this low is possible in the near term, any further strengthening beyond that will be through baroclinic processes, as sea surface temperatures will cool rapidly as it moves northward toward the mid-Atlantic coastline Friday and Saturday. We can zoom in on this graphic from Tropical Tidbits. Our low pressure area is sitting out right here over 28, 29 Celsius water. But as it moves north, it'll quickly leave that fairly steep temperature gradient. In other words, the temperature changes quickly over a short distance. That's the temperature gradient. And it'll be more the atmosphere giving it energy. So again, it's kind of one of these, got some tropical characteristics in it. It does have some mid-latitude storminess characteristics in it, kind of like a nor'easter, but not exactly. You know what I mean? It's kind of a mix there, but definitely more tropical, especially since it's sitting over that 29 Celsius water. So the big threat, if you want to call it that, the big hazard, that's the word I'm looking for, is rain and some breezy conditions along the coast. And we'll address it more once it gets a name. And hey, just for the heck of it, really, with all this 30 Celsius and above down here? Really? 31, 32 Celsius through there? Are you kidding me? Ugh, okay, well, we'll deal with that later. So what's the system going to do? This is the GFS from 12Z today. That's the time that this was initialized, 12Z, 12 Zulu, 8 a.m. Eastern Time is one way to look at it. And let's use this blue color. There's our low pressure area. Here's the eastern part of the United States over here. And what we're looking at, the GFS here, this is the 6-hour average precipitation rate. So this gives me an idea of what the modeling thinks that the shape of the storm will be, where the precipitation will be. This is what I like. Other people have different models they look at. The HRRR, the HRR as they call it. Maybe a different WRF, the NAM 3 kilometer. Hey, it's up to you. This is what I like, it shows me a general overview, and you can see this moves into southern New England by this weekend. Heavy rainfall up through the Hudson Valley. Tropical air mass with that surge of moisture coming up here. High dew points coming off that warm western Atlantic. So yes, some flooding impacts will be there. Some wind along the coast if we back it up a little bit. There's a few isobars in there. These little lines right here that you see that I'm cutting across. Each of these lines in here, that's a line of equal pressure. We call those isobars. And there's a couple of them in there packed. I sound like Bob Ross again. Just some isobars just kind of thrown in there, right, for good measure. But seriously, they're not packed tightly together, so no, not a big wind event, but breezy along the coast. And that's about it, all right? So just putting it into perspective here. So the broader picture in terms of the GFS, west coast of Africa here, eastern North America over here, and all points in between, right? You understand the rest by now, I hope. And we're looking for, do we see any concentrated areas of vorticity in this area? There is 98L right there. That's what that looks like. So let's move this ahead just a few days, shall we? And we see what happens with 98L crawling up along the coast there. A surge probably, this is indicative of a strong jet coming off of Africa. So we're probably going to have another surge of dust coming off, which is typical for July. And this is at the 5,000 foot level of the atmosphere, by the way. And with that, you get these large envelopes of energy coming off, these pockets, these tropical waves. And then on the southern flank here, the wind has just switched out of the east. Now it's westerly in this large, almost like a gyre, sort of. It's not quite, it's more of a trough. And so you get these pockets of energy that roll off like that. But again, on that southern flank, the wind comes around, and let's use a different color to highlight it. How about violet? The wind comes around from the west, and that's going to make those water temperatures warm up. That's setting the stage. It's coming, put it that way. So anyway, let's keep on going out. There's 96 hours there. Nothing really out in the tropics to worry about. And we go to 148 and 44 to 168 hours. That's a week out. We're getting towards mid-July, and things are generally quiet like they should be. All right, the peak of the season's still not supposed to happen until September. So that we don't have anything yet at this point in the modeling through July 16th. Be thankful. Trust me, because it's coming. Hey, real quick, here's a live look, literally, at our camera in Rodanthe. That's along the North Carolina Outer Banks, and I can actually widen this back out. We have a permanent Nest Cam that one of our supporters, longtime good friend of ours, if this will react and let it widen back out. If it does, there it goes. It's on a house out there in Rodanthe along the North Carolina Outer Banks. Doesn't look too bad. The wind is up just a little bit as we were looking at there. I'll zoom back in. We will set the zoom to stay there. This is a Nest Cam permanently mounted at a house, one of our supporters. So, and all of our Patreon folks get to look at this, and our HurricaneTrack insiders. I saw a few of them tweeting about it, that they get up and they have their coffee watching this live cam. We have a couple of them down in the Virgin Islands and one out in the desert, Pahrump, Nevada. Speaking of the Virgin Islands, just real quick, let me just show you what it looks like. There's the one out in Nevada. Look at that. Nothing going on. Not a cloud in the sky. Hey, maybe you can see that comet that's out there that people have been talking about. A little bit dusty again. You kind of see that hazy look. This is St. John, if it'll ever pop up. There we go. A little hazy, a little dusty still. St. Thomas, our camera there. These also hosted by our crowdfunding partners, our Patreon supporters. Beautiful sight there, lush green vegetation, and then the kind of hazy look to the sky. Thanks, Timothy, for hosting this camera, buddy. I appreciate it. And our good man, Brent, over in St. John with the one in St. John. All right, looking ahead. I keep talking about this, but it's really important, people. I got to emphasize we're not here to make you fearful. I'm just reporting what we've got coming potentially. Nobody knows for sure, but I want you to be glad that we know for sure that we have these models. You know what I'm saying? Like, be thankful that we have this foresight. I want to keep hammering that. The technology, the wisdom of people like Ben, and, you know, hopefully you trust me that we can interpret this together. I work with you to do that. And so that caveat out of the way, you know, just people, we live in a time now where there's just so much bad news. And we want to be careful in how we absorb it and how I present it. And this isn't bad news. This is just a fact that the modeling is showing, as Ben Knoll tweeted here, that over the next 4 weeks, the convective forcing will continue to stand over Africa, the pattern of upper air divergence. That's where the air is spreading out in the higher levels, will be like high-octane fuel for the easterly wave train as it begins. And he says it's only a matter of time until these systems roll into the Atlantic. So what are we looking at here? Well, there's week. Let me start it up again. Looks like I screwed it up. Refresh the page. See, I went and tried to click on it, and anyway. Week 3, week 4. So let's go back to week 1 here. It starts to expand out into the Atlantic. And what are we looking at? We're talking about this area right through here. And the way the Mercator projection is, it's hard to see. I get that. But this green is the upward motion, that divergence in the atmosphere, way up at the 200 millibar level roughly. And it just gets stuck there, so to speak, and starts to expand by week 4 out into the Atlantic just a little bit more, as you can see there. And that's when things are going to start to pick up. It really looks like it. And, you know, that's the idea here, people, is we got time, all right? Take what you can with that. You know, use that time wisely. Get that generator looked at if you've been meaning to. Talk about your insurance policy with your family, with your insurance agent. I know they're busy. Maybe hit them up on a Zoom meeting if they're still doing that and just say, look, what does my policy cover? What doesn't it cover? What's the process if I have to make a claim, if I get wind damage, if a tree pokes a hole in my roof? Am I covered for flood? Well, unless you have national flood insurance protection, the answer is no. And these are all things you can do now, and you got 4 weeks, you know, at least according to that, before things should start to really pick up. So use this time wisely. That's what awareness is the key, and we are aware that it's probably going to be a very busy season. I don't how else can I put it? All right, so I'm just trying to temper it too and not get you too anxious, because that's not my goal. I want you informed, not anxious. All right. Anyway, that is it from me for today. As always, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm on Twitter at HurricaneTrack. You know it by now, YouTube, HurricaneTrack, and we are supported by our folks at Patreon, the crowdfunding crowd, and they're what makes this possible. I really appreciate that. We're doing some great things because of that. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in the next week or so, because we're starting to unveil a few new things, and I'm going to talk about that and show you what we're doing with our crowdfunding going forward. All right, but in the meantime, you can check it out by clicking the link in today's video. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Again, thanks for watching. I am Mark Sudduth. Talk to you some more tomorrow.